So I want to take you to Malaysia. I was 8 years old at the time. My aunt from my mother's side, I called her auntie. Auntie had just passed away. She was 40, in her mid 40s, very young. She died suddenly, tragically, left behind two young children. My cousin, whom I grew up together with, she was like a sister to me, and her older brother, just 7, 8 years older than her. So my family believe in Taoism. Taoism is similar to Buddhism. You probably know a little bit about it with yin and yang symbol, or perhaps you've come across something here as well. And according to Taoism, when someone dies, after 100 days, there is the process of meeting this spirit again before that person moves on to the other world. Like, this is the living world, and then there's the other world, kind of like a parallel universe. I don't understand it completely. I'm not 100% Taoist. And so 100 days after the passing is the chance for family members, I guess, to say goodbye to the deceased. And so I was a child at the time. I was too young, but we were in this made-up temple, like a makeshift temple. It's actually a house, like a village house of a shaman, a female shaman, someone who was able to conjure or bring up a dead spirit. She was very popular for this. And so we had the whole family had to go to her place for this ritual. And I'm talking about the whole family, meaning like 20, 30 people, because I have a big family. So we gathered in this house, temple house, wooden walls, floor that is not really done, like cement floor, typical metal roof, typical village house in Malaysia at that time. And in the middle of the room was this big T-shaped altar full of statues of Taoist goddesses and gods. And then there is the huge area, like a little place for all the incense, all sizes of incense, big ones, small ones. So the room was just smoky. It's very strong smell, pungent incense smell. And then there's the whole family surrounding this shaman woman, female shaman. I don't know how to address her. Thank you. Thank you, yes. So this medium, an older woman at that time, she was maybe in her 80s, already gray hair, very frail. Like, she was not healthy, as you could see. She was already very weak physically. Her eyes were kind of like, you don't know if they're open or closed, so you can't really read her expressions. But she had this look on her that she could really talk to the spirits kind of look. Perhaps if she was a performance artist, she would have won a lot of awards. But I don't know, I was a child. So I was there, very excited to see what would happen. I was not that close to my auntie, but I actually didn't get to say goodbye to her before her very sudden passing. So I thought, perhaps it was nice to see how this would be done, that she would come back to say goodbye for the last time. So there was the whole family, and my grandma was there. And my grandma from my mom's side as well, she was like the leader of this whole ritual, making sure everything was going well. And the medium, the older woman, she went into some chanting, and she was like sitting in front of this big T-shaped altar, and she just started chanting something, and she went into like a trance, and she was just chanting something, like her body is moving, and you could see like she was getting into this whole really interesting physical movements that like earlier she was so frail and you know, like she could barely walk, and then she as if she was going through a transformation. And it was like a scene out of a horror movie from Japanese horror film or something like that. And I was there. I was like watching intently, like an eagle, because it was so fascinating for me as a child. And then my aunt's spirit entered her body, and when that happened, she was down like this, and then she just raised her head slowly, and the room was still. Air was still. No one breathed almost. It was so still. And then she just started gentle shaking. Ah! No, that didn't happen. No, actually there was backtrack. I wanted to see some reactions. So no, she actually started crying, like the way my auntie would. And I didn't know if my auntie might have met her, like they had met before she passed away. I don't know, because I was a child, but I could see my auntie in her. And the whole posture, the non-verbal movements, the facial expression, it was really like my auntie. Even she talked like that. And then my grandma, she didn't have a good relationship with my auntie when my auntie was alive. They actually didn't like each other very much. My grandma started like crying, like bawling her eyes out. I'm not saying like crying, like just sobbing, like not like that. She went full on dramatic. She was like, and it was quite a scene. Because that was my grandma, and that was this dead spirit of my auntie. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna watch if she's really like lying or not. So I was a boy, but I was really skeptical. So I watched every movement, every facial expression she made. I wanted to catch that moment when there's like, ha, that's not my auntie. So I was watching her intently. And then there was a part where we all got to say goodbye to my auntie before she goes back to the other side of the world, and then, you know, before the gate closes for her, right? So each of us get a chance to just say one thing to her, or to her supposedly dead spirit. And then my mom told me, hey, go say goodbye to auntie. And I'm like, okay, because I was a boy. I walk up to this woman, this shaman woman, and I look at her, and she didn't look at me, and she was just like in this zone. And I said, bye, auntie. And she nodded, and for the first time, I felt that there was so much emotions in my family, where I grew up, the only emotion allowed was anger. All the other emotions were suppressed. Regret, love, sorry, being sorry, all these other emotions, they're kind of suppressed. But that day, when we were there were like just a lot of emotions out. And till now, I remember this because it took a visit from the other world to get my family to reveal emotions. Thank you.